Have you ever felt like your entire world could change in just a few seconds? Like everything you thought was solid ground beneath your feet could suddenly shatter with just a few words? That's what happened to me on what started as the most ordinary Sunday morning of my life. The sun was streaming through our bedroom curtains, coffee brewing downstairs, and the familiar weight of another weekend morning settling around our home. 5 years of marriage, and mornings like these had become as natural as breathing. I found Mark in the kitchen, newspaper spread across the counter, looking exactly like the man I'd fallen in love with years ago. My phone was dead, so I reached for his to check the weather. We'd always had an open phone policy. No passwords, no secrets. His phone lit up in my hand, and that's when I saw it. A notification sliding across the top of the screen. "I can't wait to hold you again." From someone named Rebecca. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I stared at those words until they burned into my memory, my hand trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to welcome you to Tales of Lust. If this is your first time here, we share real stories about the complicated, messy parts of relationships that most people experience but few talk about openly. If my story resonates with you, please subscribe for more content that explores the reality of human connection. Let me take you back to 3 months before that devastating Sunday morning, when everything still seemed normal. Mark had just started a new position at a marketing firm downtown. After years of feeling uninspired, this opportunity had ignited something in him I hadn't seen in a long time. He'd come home energized, eager to tell me about creative meetings and the collaborative team environment. I was genuinely happy for him. "This is exactly what I've been looking for," he told me, his eyes bright with excitement. A chance to really create something meaningful again. Our marriage actually seemed to improve during this transition. We started having real conversations again. We made plans for weekend trips. Our intimacy rekindled not just physically, but emotionally. I remember thinking, this is what we needed all along. He'd mentioned various colleagues, Sam from graphic design, Tony the creative director, and occasionally Rebecca, who handled client relations. Nothing alarming. Just casual references to a coworker who seemed to be helping him adjust. But then things began to shift. Mark started staying later at work. His explanations became more vague. Got caught up in a brainstorming session, he'd text. Client dinner running long. I remember one evening when we were watching TV. His phone vibrated, and I caught a glimpse of Rebecca's name before he snatched it up with unusual speed. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, just work stuff," he said, typing a response with a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Rebecca has a question about tomorrow's presentation." I nodded and turned back to the television, but a knot had formed in my stomach. Why would a colleague be texting him at 9:45 p.m. about work? And why did he look almost happy about it? I started noticing other things too. How he'd step out of the room to take certain calls. How he'd changed his phone password, claiming work security protocols. How he started showering immediately after coming home, something he'd never done before. There's a unique kind of torment in suspecting, but not knowing for sure. You become hypervigilant, analyzing every word, every gesture, searching for clues while simultaneously trying to convince yourself that you're just being paranoid. The night before I found the message, we had a massive thunderstorm. The power went out around 8 p.m. In the flickering candlelight, Mark seemed distant, distracted. He kept checking his dark phone screen periodically, as if willing it to have service despite the outage. "Expecting an important call?" I asked. "No, just have it, I guess," he said, putting the phone down. But within minutes, his hand would creep back to it. "Mark," I said finally, "are we okay?" He looked startled, then smiled too quickly. "Of course we are. Why wouldn't we be?" "I don't know. You just seem somewhere else lately." He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "I'm right here, just stressed about work." I nodded, wanting desperately to believe him. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something essential was shifting between us. Then came that Sunday morning. The moment when suspicion crystallized into certainty. Mark was in the shower. I picked up his phone to check the forecast, and the notification appeared. "I can't wait to hold you again." From Rebecca. And then another. "Last night was amazing. I keep thinking about how you made me feel so." My hands were shaking too hard to read the rest. The room seemed to tilt around me. Somehow, the phone unlocked when I swiped. He must have disabled the password temporarily. The message thread with Rebecca appeared, and the evidence of their betrayal unfolded before me. Weeks of messages, intimate conversations, plans to meet. They'd been seeing each other for over 2 months. 2 months of lies. When Mark came downstairs, hair still damp, he stopped dead in his tracks when he saw me standing there with his phone. He knew immediately. "It's not what you think," he said automatically. "Then what is it, Mark?" My voice sounded strangely calm. "Because it looks like you've been sleeping with your colleague for 2 months while lying to my face every day." His face crumpled, and he sank into a chair. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he whispered. "It just evolved." "Things don't just evolve, Mark. You made choices. Every text, every lie, every time you were with her, those were all choices you made." And then it all came pouring out. How it started as friendship. How Rebecca understood his creative passions in a way he thought I couldn't. How one late night at the office led to drinks, which led to more. How he still loved me but felt something was missing in our marriage. All the cliches you think you'll never hear until you're sitting across from the person who promised to love you forever as they explain why they broke that promise. As he talked, something shifted inside me. I stood up and walked upstairs to our bedroom. I pulled out a suitcase and began to pack while he followed me, still talking. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm leaving," I said simply. "I can't stay here right now. Please, we need to talk about this. I made a terrible mistake. I'll end it with her, I swear." I looked at him and said, "I deserve someone who doesn't need to look elsewhere to feel complete." The look on his face, surprise mixed with shame, told me he hadn't expected this reaction. I didn't slam doors or scream. I just packed my bag, called my sister, and walked out. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. 3 days later, while sitting on my sister's couch, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I ended it with her completely. "Please come home. I love you." I replied simply, "I need time." Not for him, for me. Because trust isn't just broken by infidelity, it's shattered by the deception that surrounds it. I started therapy. The hardest question to answer was whether I still loved him. Of course, I did. 5 years of marriage doesn't just evaporate overnight. But love wasn't the issue. Trust was. Respect was. And self-worth, the understanding that I deserved more than what he had given me. After a month of separation, we met at a coffee shop. Mark looked different, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said. "About us. About what I did. About why I did it. And I finally asked, it wasn't about you. It was never about you not being enough." He ran a hand through his hair. I was lost, unhappy with myself. Rebecca made me feel important in a way that felt like validation. "I needed you too," I said quietly. "I just didn't make it a competition for your attention." We talked for 2 hours. He told me he'd started therapy too. That he'd transferred departments to avoid working with Rebecca. That he understood if I couldn't forgive him, but hoped I would try. "I miss you," he said as we were leaving. "I miss us." "There is no us right now," I replied. "There's just you and your choices and me and mine." The weeks turned into months. I started rebuilding myself. I joined a writing group. I reconnected with old friends. I made my temporary apartment feel like home. 3 months after I'd moved out, we began couples counseling. In those sessions, layers were peeled back. Mark talked about his father's infidelity, how he'd promised himself he'd never be that man. I talked about my fears of abandonment, how I'd sensed something was wrong for months, but had been too afraid to confront it. 6 months after that fateful Sunday morning, I made my decision. Not in a dramatic moment of clarity, but gradually. I don't think I can come back to our house, I told him over dinner one night. Too many memories there. His face fell, but he nodded. I understand. But I continued, I'm not ready to give up on us either. I proposed we find a new place together, a home untainted by what had happened. That we'd continue therapy. That we'd essentially start dating again, rebuilding our relationship from the ground up. It won't be easy, I told him. There will be days when I remember and it hurts all over again. I know, he said, reaching for my hand. I'm prepared for that. I just want another chance to be the husband you deserve. A year has passed since that Sunday morning when one message on his phone destroyed everything I thought I knew. We're still in our new house, still in therapy, still learning how to love each other better. What I've learned through all of this, sometimes the deepest wounds, if tended properly, can become the strongest parts of us. Our marriage isn't perfect. It never was. But it's authentic now in a way it wasn't before. We've seen the worst of each other and chosen to stay despite it, not out of habit, but out of a deliberate decision to love what's real. If you're going through something similar, I won't tell you what choice to make. Every relationship is different. What I will say is this: trust yourself. Don't let anyone tell you what forgiveness should look like or how long healing should take. Was I wrong for looking at his phone that day? Maybe. Did I deserve what I found? Absolutely not. Sometimes relationships can heal from infidelity. Sometimes they can't. The question isn't just whether you can forgive them, it's whether you can build something new together that honors who you've both become through the pain. If my story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe to Tales of Lust for more stories that explore the complicated reality of human connection. Thank you for listening.